Mel Gibson has been in Hollywood for over 40 years. He's seen things most people never get close enough to witness. And for decades, quietly, carefully, and sometimes at great personal cost, he has been trying to tell us what that world really looks like behind the curtain. Most people dismissed him. But here's what's interesting. When you take what Mel described and then you look at what's been documented about some of Hollywood's most beloved, most untouchable figures, the picture he painted stops looking like paranoia and starts looking like a warning that came true. Today we're talking about Oprah Winfrey. Not the woman on the magazine covers, not the motivational icon. The version of Oprah that the mainstream press has never been comfortable examining. The facts are disturbing. They're verified. And in light of what Mel Gibson said, they demand to be talked about. Let's get into it. Before we get to Oprah, we need to hear Mel Gibson in his own words. Because what he described about Hollywood on the Joe Rogan podcast is the exact context that makes everything we're about to cover make sense.
I wanted to leave. And because I knew that I didn't want to work with him.
Yeah.
And he was getting, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
He described arriving in Hollywood in his mid-20s. Young, talented, entering one of the most powerful industries on earth, and immediately sensing something deeply wrong. Something nobody was willing to name.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be, because a whole place can't be like, weird town, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them and they tell you don't go to the house on the hill, and it's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. That's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you were exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time, and you think,
Some of your worst nightmares were real. Let that sit. Because as we go through what follows, I want you to keep coming back to that line. In 2012, Oprah Winfrey traveled to Brazil for an episode of Oprah's Next Chapter. The man she went to meet was João Teixeira de Faria, known the world over as John of God, a self-described spiritual healer who claimed to channel divine power to cure the sick. Oprah sat across from him. She filmed him. She broadcast him to millions of people and described his work as nothing short of miraculous. In 2018, over 600 women came forward. The accusations included rape, sexual assault of victims reportedly as young as 9 years old, a trafficking operation involving forced pregnancies, the sale of newborns. By 2023, João Teixeira de Faria had been sentenced to a combined total of over 118 years in prison. The man Oprah called inspiring. When the story broke, Oprah released a brief statement saying she empathized with the women coming forward and hoped justice would be served. No deeper accountability. No acknowledgement of the platform she gave him. No apology to the women who may have been drawn into his orbit because of her endorsement. Now go back to Mel Gibson's words. There's a lot of weird power games. Some of your worst nightmares were real. One of the most powerful women in media put a predator in front of the world and called him a healer. Let's talk about Harvey Weinstein, because the Oprah Weinstein Connection is one of the most documented and least discussed stories in Hollywood. Oprah and Weinstein collaborated professionally. He was credited as executive producer on the 2013 film The Butler, which Oprah starred in. By all accounts, they were genuinely friendly for years. And here is where it gets deeply uncomfortable. An actress named Katie Noble filed a lawsuit alleging that Harvey Weinstein used Oprah's presence to lure her into a situation where she was later assaulted. Her account, reported by multiple outlets, described Weinstein with Oprah, in her words, swinging off his arm, and that seeing Oprah with him made her believe this was a man she could trust, a man who had something real to offer her career. Noble alleged she was sexually assaulted shortly after. When the Weinstein scandal broke publicly in 2017, Oprah posted about being unable to find the words to describe the magnitude of what had happened. Reports then emerged that she had called Weinstein after the story broke to advise him. Her spokesperson denied it. Now, none of this makes Oprah Harvey Weinstein. That needs to be said clearly. But the pattern of proximity, the years of friendship, and the silence while it was happening, these are not small things. They are exactly the kind of details that Mel Gibson was alluding to when he described a system that protects itself.
Presented with a lot of things and a lot of new games to play and a lot of people and money, and there's a lot of weird power games, and there's the studios over in California and all this kind of stuff, and it gets to be a little bit overwhelming while you try and figure out, firstly, who you are, because, in your 20s, you don't really have a sense of yourself yet. And then try and figure out what the game is. So I felt I needed to take a breather because I was a little overwhelmed by the whole thing. This tide was carrying me, and I wasn't in control of it. It was controlling me. So I just stopped. I bought a farm, and I grew organic vegetables, and I raised cattle, and I milked a cow, and the whole thing,
In 2007, Oprah Winfrey opened the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for girls in Johannesburg, South Africa. A $40 million boarding school personally funded by her. Nelson Mandela attended the opening. The world applauded. Less than a year later, 6 students came forward to accuse a dormitory matron of sexual and physical abuse. The matron faced 14 charges. Oprah flew to South Africa. She described it as one of the most devastating experiences of her life. She said she was shaken to her core. Then, in 2009, a second incident. 7 students were suspended for sexually harassing and assaulting classmates. These are verified, documented events, reported by NBC, Time Magazine, Reuters, and NPR. We are not trafficking in speculation here. We are reading the public record. A school built to protect the most vulnerable girls on Earth. Twice rocked by sexual abuse scandals within the first 2 years of opening. Oprah's response each time was to express devastation, implement changes, and move on. No one was held broadly accountable at the institutional level. The story faded. As these stories tend to do, here is what I want you to consider. These aren't fringe allegations from anonymous internet corners. John of God. Documented, convicted, 118 years in prison. Weinstein's proximity to Oprah, documented and on the record. The school scandals, reported by mainstream outlets for years. And yet Oprah's name remains synonymous with empowerment, inspiration, and moral authority. How does that happen? Mel Gibson gave us a framework for understanding it, not about Oprah specifically, but about how this industry works.
You wire the big realms of good and evil, and they exist. They're as real as we are. Why are these realms slugging it out for the souls, the hearts and souls of mankind? Why?
He also said this, and I think it might be the most important thing in this entire video.
It's just unbelievable that society can crumble that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is unbelievable.
It doesn't take long.
No.
Yeah. I read a book once by Jared Diamond called Collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read that book?
Yeah.
Crazy, right? It says all the things you need for a civilization to cave in and collapse. And a lot of the things are present. All those earmarks, the precursors of a collapse, they're present in our time. So it's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
And we're no smarter than our grandparents, I don't think.
When the most powerful people in entertainment are connected, repeatedly, documentably, to the abuse of women and children, and the world keeps applauding them anyway, that's not a coincidence. That's a system. And Mel Gibson warned us that system existed long before most people were ready to believe it. I want to be clear about something. We are not here to render a final verdict on Oprah Winfrey. We are here to ask questions that the mainstream press has consistently refused to ask, and to let the documented facts speak for themselves. A man she called inspiring assaulted hundreds of women and girls. A man convicted of rape used her name and her presence to gain access to victims. A school she built and funded was hit with abuse scandals before it was 2 years old. These things happened. They are not rumors. They are in the public record. And Mel Gibson, a man who had every reason to stay quiet and protect his career, tried to tell us decades ago that the nightmares were real. The only question left is whether we're ready to pay attention. If this video made you think, drop a comment below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And God bless you. We'll see you next time.